Hi, my name is Pedro Vergara, and today we will talk about the role of flexibility in solving the problem of grid congestion. In this video, we will first discuss what energy flexibility actually means and why it has become an important tool for dealing with grid congestion. Second, we will look at the different ways flexibility can be used in practice and compare the approaches and their challenges. At a high level, energy flexibility means the ability to change electricity consumption or production compared to a normal pattern in response to a signal. That signal can be a price, a grid constraint, or a request from a grid operators. In practice, flexibility often means shifting demand to another moment or temporarily reduce demand or using storage to smooth peaks. It is important to mention that there is no single standard definition of flexibility. Different studies and organizations define it slightly different. Reserves and flexibility both involve adjusting power, but they work very differently. Reserves are contracted in advance, based on forecasts of load, weather, and renewable energy generation. Their purpose is to keep the whole system balanced and maintain frequency stability. They are often provided by large generators. Flexibility is mostly used to solve local issues like congestion, peak shaving, or smart charging. The key point is that activation happens in real time. The spare capacity is there, and you decide on the spot whether to use it. This is provided by distributed resources such as electric vehicles, heat pumps, batteries, and rooftop PV systems. So, reserves are planned ahead of time. Flexibility reacts in the moment. With grid congestion, the issue is that too much power flows through the grid at the same time. Flexibility helps by reshaping either the demand or the generation to stay within the grid limit. First, we can shift energy in time. Instead of consuming energy during the peak hour, we move consumption to other times of the day. Smart charging of electric vehicles and battery storage are good examples of this. The total energy consumption remains the same, but we avoid stressing the grid at peak times. Second, we can temporarily reduce the demand. Large companies and industry can pause processes when the grid is constrained. This directly reduces the demand, but it can also cause economic or operational cost. Lastly, if the congestion is caused by too much local energy generation, we can curtail the production. For example, limit the solar or wind output. However, in practice, using flexibility is not always straightforward. Market-based procurement can be preferred by regulators because it enables open and competitive participation. However, this comes with more uncertainty, and the availability of flexibility is not guaranteed. Participants might not bid or might not provide exactly what is needed. In addition, these markets have to be carefully designed to reflect the local network constraints. These markets also require complex control and communication infrastructure to coordinate everything. Overall, while markets can improve fairness and efficiency, they also introduce higher risk and uncertainty in managing congestion. To use flexibility effectively, we need to describe it in a structured way. We do that using 4 indices. First, power capacity, how many kilowatts the resource can increase or decrease at a moment. Second, energy capacity, how many kilowatt-hour it can shift over a period of time. Third, ramping limits, how quickly it can move from one power level to another. And finally, response time, how fast it can react once it receives a signal. Because in practice, flexibility depends on user behavior, so it is never perfectly predictable. Together, these 4 metrics give us a clear picture of what the flexibility resource can actually deliver. A main challenge with flexibility is that it does not come with one big resource, but from many small resources, each with its own limits and user preferences. To use flexibility reliably, we first need to aggregate as many small contributions into one predictable flex product. We can group electric vehicles, batteries, households, and industrial loads together and treat them as a one combined pool. That way, instead of managing hundreds of individual devices, we can treat them as a single, predictable flex product. In the example in the slide, across both neighborhoods, that might add up to something like 10 megawatts of aggregated flexibility. But finally, we have to disaggregate the resources again, because flexibility is local. Even though we estimated 10 megawatts of flexibility across both neighborhoods, that only helps if it is located where the congestion actually occurs. So if the congestion is in one of the branches, only the resources connected to this neighborhood can contribute. The rest of the pool cannot help with this specific problem. That is why the delivered flexibility at the congestion location is lower than the 10 megawatts aggregated. To summarize, we first introduce what energy flexibility actually is and how it can be used at both distribution and transmission level. Then, we look at how flexibility can help solve grid congestion by shifting, reducing, or curtailing power. And finally, we compare different ways to procure and use that flexibility and discuss the practical challenges that come with it.